Alright, for those of you joining in over on YouTube, getting ready to go live here on TikTok. Had a great live last night with Mike, the Rational Boomer, TJ the Plumber, Rebecca, Will, just everybody who was in. It was a great live. So we are live now on YouTube, waiting for people to come in. Obviously, there was no government shutdown. They ended up coming to terms. They passed the funding bill. Kicks the can down the road all the way to March. Basically, Democrats got everything they agreed to. Donald Trump got screwed over in this deal, which is a good thing. He tried to power play the Republicans, and he got burned. They told him no, he's not getting his way. He wanted to put his finger on the scale of passing this funding bill, and it didn't happen. So government stays open. He thought he could put his thumb on it and get the government to shut down and somehow blame Joe Biden and get his way and get all these things he wanted, and nothing happened. Ultimately, Republicans had to work with Democrats to keep the government open. And that's just the way it's going to be. I mean, this is how the next 2 years is going to look like. Republicans are going to try to do a bunch of stuff. Democrats are going to have to be the ones to come to the table and say, look, we got 215 votes in the House. If you want to pass this, you need us. These are our terms. There's no guarantee even that the Republicans are going to be able to come up with a Speaker of the House come January 3rd. Certain Republicans are pissed off that Mike Johnson ended up working with Democrats and ignoring Donald Trump. So if they can't come up with 218 votes for a speaker, the House of Representatives doesn't exist until they come to a speaker. But the funding bill passed. That's a good thing. There was some funding money in there for it was removed. It was supposed to be for child cancer research. That did not make the funding bill, but they passed it on a separate bill on its own. So that passed today. I believe Joe Biden is going to sign that as well. There was another bill they tried to put into the funding bill. It did not get in the funding bill, but they also passed it separate by itself today. And that is, they transferred the control of RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C. to the city. The federal government will own the land, but the city can use the stadium as they please. And that will allow them potentially to set up a deal with the Commanders to have the Commanders potentially use that facility and everything else. But there was no money for the stadium. So all of that passed. And now we are getting to the point where Congress is going to be leaving town the next day or two for their Christmas break. And I believe when they come back, I don't think they come back until January 3rd when the new Congress gets sworn in. Obviously, they could always come back early if there was a serious enough emergency. So there's not going to be as much to talk about here in the upcoming days and weeks as we get through both Christmas and the New Year holiday. Like I said, Joe Biden signed the funding bill. That's all dealt with. Government stays open. Saw Donald Trump put in a lawsuit in Texas. He is trying to sue Joe Biden or the federal government to prevent the sale of border wall materials for parts of the wall that were never built, except Joe Biden is required by a law that Congress passed to sell them. But Donald Trump wants this judge to step in and cancel the sale, stop all that from happening, and force an investigation. Well, I don't have TJ in here right now, or Rebecca, but You can go away. Don't have a moderator right now. Handling my own moderation. And if you want to complain about the few terms I have on my comments, well, then you don't need to be part of my live. So kind of practicing without a net here. Don't have my moderator. But it's okay. Now, last night I was part of a joint live with the Rational Boomer, with TJ the Plumber, Rebecca, Will, who's a frequent guest over on the Rational Boomer, a few other people, and we had a great conversation. That's going to be going up on the Rational Boomer's YouTube page sometime soon, not sure when. So look out for that. So that'll be great. We had a good conversation, mostly about the funding bill and what this means. Alice Peterson says, loved last night's live. Well, thank you. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Especially with Will on there. He gets a little fiery. But it was a good conversation back and forth. So it was a good time. I recommend, if you didn't get a chance to check it out, keep an eye over on the Rational Boomers YouTube page. It'll be up sometime soon, with everybody involved. But funding bill's done, kicks the can out till March 14th. Now they will have to come around and refund the government at that point, but then Republicans are going to be in complete control. Problem is, they're going to end up still probably needing Democrats because they can't agree with themselves. They have, at best, a 3-seat majority in the House of Representatives. This is the narrowest majority of either party going back into the to 1929, I think, somewhere right around there, when Herbert Hoover was president and the stock market crashed. Like, it is a very, very thin majority for the Republicans, and they can't agree with themselves. They are probably going to need Democrats to fund the government, which means when March 14th rolls around, we get about end of February, early March, they're going to start working out another deal. And Democrats are going to say, okay, here's the deal. Keep current funding levels. Let's keep it funded. Let's not do any cuts. And that's where Democrats are going to be. Republicans are going to want to do all these cuts. They're going to want to do this. You're going to have one group wanting to do one thing, another group wanting to do another. And they may not get anything passed. They may have no choice but to end up siding with Democrats yet again to do this. I mean, but they may not even have a speaker by that point. There's no guarantee that Mike Johnson will be the Speaker of the House come January 3rd. There's no guarantee. They're pissed at Mike Johnson in part for going up against Donald Trump and passing what they had to pass, for working with Democrats and not holding the line. So there is a chance he ends up not being Speaker of the House come January 3rd. And without a Speaker, the House of Representatives cannot function. And there's no guarantee Republicans can come up to a 218 vote majority for anybody. Alice says, I give Mike Johnson 2 months. Yeah, there's a good chance he doesn't survive as Speaker the entire 2 years. He might not, like I said, he might not make it into January. Now, multiple things could happen. One, some people have floated the idea of Elon Musk being Speaker of the House, that they'll put Musk up being Speaker, and they could nominate Elon Musk. However, we have never had a Speaker of the House that was not an elected member of the House. Doesn't mean it can't happen, because it could, but I just don't see it happening. They may try, they'll ultimately fail. And then ultimately, they're either going to have to come to some kind of agreement within the Republican Party to reelect Mike Johnson, to reelect somebody else. Frank says that's a problem. What's a problem? They could have to come to a deal within the Republican Party to elect a speaker, some other member of the House or whatever, where they can get 218 votes. Or they may have to end up siding with Democrats, because when the Democrats are going to show up, they're going to say, who do you want to be speaker? One of the Democrats is going to say Hakeem Jeffries. And then all the Democrats are going to vote for Hakeem Jeffries. Now they have to get to 218. It only takes 3 Republicans to vote no on anybody the Republicans put up. And there's no speaker. And Mike Johnson's not speaker. But they still have to get over the 218 vote threshold. Just because they vote no for Mike Johnson does not mean they have to vote for Hakeem Jeffries. They can vote for anybody they choose. Last time they were looking for a Speaker of the House, I think they voted for, some people kept voting for Trump. So just because they don't vote for Johnson does not mean they automatically have to vote for Jeffries. However, you could get 2 or 3 Republicans that say, look, I'm getting sick of the craziness here. We can't agree with ourselves. We need some leadership. And it is possible, they come across the aisle and say, okay, we're voting for Hakeem Jeffries. Just to get a speaker in there and to get somebody who's going to control the House and make it work fine. It's possible. It's crazy to think about. But crazier things have happened. I mean, we shouldn't have... Barry says never happened. I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I'm just saying it's possible. Love Boomer Podcast says hello, Eric. Well, hello to you too. I'm just saying it is entirely possible. I mean, everybody was convinced that they weren't going to work with the Democrats because Donald Trump said, he wanted this particular bill. Well, what happened? They worked with Democrats. They kept the government funded. Despite Republican efforts, they are going to have to work with Democrats. Their margins are so thin, they're not going to be left with much of a choice. So once again, the Democrats are going to have to save them, and it's going to come at a high cost. Something else that could happen is Hakeem Jeffries could go to Mike Johnson and say, like he did with Kevin McCarthy, and say, look, they're going to try to oust you as Speaker. I got 215 votes. We will back you in exchange for X, Y, and Z. That is also entirely possible. Frank says a trillionaire has no idea what the common person making 60K is going through. They don't have a clue. Not a clue. But it's entirely possible that Hakeem Jeffries leverages his 215 votes for the Democrats to get their priorities through the House, allowing certain things to be brought up for a vote, allowing for certain deals when it comes to spending, etc., that they want. They could get some of their priorities to the floor that way by saving Speaker Johnson. It'll be interesting to see if in the new rules package, Love Boomer Podcast says, for how long more Elon Musk will be acting president? Not much. He won't be around long. There's already starting to be some cracks between him and Trump. Trump had to send a message out through the transition team that said Donald Trump is the head of the GOP, not Musk, etc. And had to clarify that. So, like, for all the people saying that Elon actually the president and things like that, it's getting to Donald Trump. And he's getting concerned about it. So he's making comments. The more they butt heads and the more Musk doing things, like if it wouldn't have been for Musk, I don't think Donald Trump would have tried to kill the funding bill. But Musk was trying to get it killed, patted Donnie on the back and said, "You'll look like a genius if you get your way here. You could steal the spotlight from Joe Biden a little bit." And then they try it and they failed. And now Donald Trump looks dumb. Donald Trump, he cares about his perception and the ego and all of it. So, yeah, Alice says, with Trump's ego, Musk won't be around much longer. Yeah, exactly. If he thinks Musk is getting too much of the spotlight, if he thinks Musk is making him look dumb or he's doing stupid things because of Musk, Musk will be gone. Dallas says nobody knows the conversations that they have behind closed doors every single day. Are you talking about Musk and Trump? Or are you talking about in Congress? But you're right, as far as the closed door conversations, there's a lot of things we don't know. But Musk and Trump won't be buddy buddy for long. Their egos are gonna mesh. Society Mom says Mike is talking to Musk all the time. He is for now. Dallas says Elon has a job with the vet and they're doing very well, but nothing gonna happen until Trump. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, but Musk won't be around long. And ultimately, when push comes to shove, Donald Trump is the president. It's not Elon Musk. And when one needs to go, like it'll be Musk that goes. But then again, we don't know how much longer Donald Trump is going to be in office either. You know, his health isn't the greatest. I know a lot of the Trump supporters are like, "Man, he's peak human condition." No, he's not. He's overweight, doesn't eat the best. He's very clearly mentally declining, and something's going to happen to him. Whether it's his health gets him, whether it gets bad enough that J.D. Vance has to use the 25th Amendment and remove Trump because his mental health has declined to that point, or if it gets absolutely bad enough, Congress may have to use the 25th Amendment. So any number of things could happen to Donald Trump. I don't think he survives 4 years. I don't. There, Cohen says Trump, Musk, or Putin. Who will have the power? Donald Trump, but he'll listen to anybody who pats him on the back and tells him he's a genius. Musk will be gone before long. They're going to butt heads. Donald Trump and Musk are too similar. They won't be able to coexist for long. And Putin, it's very rocky with what Putin may want to do. He's tried to embarrass Trump, things like that. And if Donald Trump can't get stuff through Congress, he's useless anyway. So I don't know, but Curtis says, well, This is a coin in the air flipped by a mun. I don't know what you're talking about. Um, I mean, when I talk about the mental decline of Donald Trump, I'm talking about things like today. He took to Truth Social demanding the return of the Panama Canal that we gave back to Panama in the 70s. Like, that makes no sense. Now, he's claiming we're getting hosed in shipping costs, things like that, and that's his whole reasoning, but like, that's never going to be a thing. It's not going to happen. Panama's not just going to give back control of the Panama Canal Zone. They're not just going to say, "Okay, Donnie, here you go." And if he tries to buy it back, that would require Congress to appropriate funds to buy it. Don't see that happening. Like, none of it makes any sense. But that's what he's focused on right now. The day after he gets embarrassed by having the Congress reject his calls for the budget and vote on the bill, basically pass the bill that he didn't want. So Bucky says, "I can't believe America voted for a lunatic." Yeah, you're right. He is a lunatic. I can't either. I really expected Kamala Harris to win. Everything was pointing that she should win. And I still believe that. I think she should have won. Everything was in that direction. Looking back, I don't see any of the signs that would have given me any other outcome. The only thing I fault, it's not even her that for, I fault whoever was advising her. She spent way too long campaigning with Liz Cheney, and I think she lost a lot of left-leaning voters because of it. Dodger fan says it's just another distraction. Yeah, it is. Society Mom says, he says crazy things and then people act like it's normal. Yeah. Ms. Singleton says, what's the matter with Elon and Trump? Are they well? No. I mean, this is normal for them, but they're not well. Going back to what Society Mom said, he says crazy things and people act like it's normal. Yeah. Donald Trump says the dumbest shit, and you watch his supporters tie themselves into knots trying to make it make some kind of logical sense. Like, he said on the campaign trail he was going to lower grocery prices, then comes out and says, well, that's going to be harder than I thought. And now I've seen some videos of Trump supporters trying to find ways to explain why higher grocery prices are actually better for the economy and going to make them more money. It doesn't make sense, but he says the dumb shit, and his supporters eat it up and they treat it like he's normal. Blair says the Republican Party supporters have been in mental decline since Reagan. Yeah, they have. Miss Singleton says, I believe Elon stole the election. I would love to see any sort of proof. Kat says Musk's brother owns a drone company and they all cheated. Again, would love to see the proof. Kat's from New Jersey where the drone sighting... Well, since I don't have TJ in here, I'm going to have to do it myself. I don't have a moderator, so bear with me here. Love Boomer Podcast says Lindsey Graham said he won't vote to approve RFK. Looks like the problems are beginning to form. Yeah. They're not going to get a bunch of their nominees through Congress. They're just not. Um, they like RFK Jr. probably not getting confirmed. Linda McMahon probably not getting confirmed. Tulsi Gabbard, who was coming out, there's some reporting that she was listed as by the TSA as a security threat. Probably not going to get confirmed. Pete Hegseth. 12 senators have said they want to see the FBI background check and see if there's anything credible about all the allegations against Pete Hegseth. Um, so, a bunch of the nominees, it's going to get ugly. And in fact, some senators are trying to get through to Trump and tell them, hey, you may want to back some of these people off. Tell them to withdraw graciously because it's going to be ugly and there's going to be dirt come out, and you don't want that. Hate My Job 68 says, what does my screen name mean? Analytical Iowan? It means I kind of came up with it because I analyze things. I look at them and I figure out what's going on, and I'm an Iowan. Not a lot to it. Okay, don't have TJ, handling it myself. Bucky says, do you think the 14th Amendment will not let the election be certified? Trump's an adjudicated, I'm guessing you're going to say insurrectionist. I've been hearing some people talk about it. I haven't seen anything that looks like a lawsuit or where the courts would get involved or anything like that. It's possible. It just doesn't seem likely. I mean, it should. You would think it should. It should happen. And it creates a whole new set of problems. We've never had this issue. And that comes up with a lot of things with Donald Trump. We've never had this issue. So, if something happens and Donald Trump cannot make it to Inauguration Day, which is a little under a month away, presumably J.D. Vance would become president. But you could say, if they're using the 14th Section 3, that Donald Trump, by his support of the J6 insurrectionists, is giving aid and comfort to people who have participated in an insurrection. He'd be ineligible. Well, J.D. Vance has said some of the same things. Therefore, would he also be ineligible? And if they're both ineligible, does Kamala win? Does it go to the House? What happens? There is a lot of questions about that. And if 14th Amendment applies, I would love to see, I want to see something happen, but we're running out of time. And all of it would have to be done by January 6th because that's when the certification is. So, I don't know. Society Mom says there was an election official video that said Starlink helped with the count. I've heard that, but yeah, I just don't have any. I haven't seen anything that proves that. That proves that Starlink had anything to do with it. Maybe it's possible, but supposedly the counting machines aren't connected to the internet. The only thing that was connected in areas where they did use Starlink, they were just sending the information, and I don't know. Crazy Stuff said Trump was right about one thing: a foreigner is taking his job. Yeah. You know what? I can't tell if you're a Trumper or not, but you're gone. And you're gone. If you put all your Dems in, y'all would hate on them. Oh, I already blocked you. Uh, Blair says Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset. Yeah. Um, like I said, she was found to be by TSA to be a security threat. Ms. Singleton says, "Yeah, we've never had these problems. We've had a, we've never had a lot of these issues." Um, and that we say that a lot with Donald Trump. A lot of things have been unprecedented. Uh, Jossie says it was a riot. Then either way, they did it for nothing. Yeah, January 6th was an insurrection. They were trying to stop the count of the votes, and the whole thing about them trying to say it was the people on the left or Nancy Pelosi was behind it or whatever makes no sense. Why would they try to affect the or stop the certification of an election in which Joe Biden won? None of it makes sense. They just don't want to admit that there's an issue. Katrina says, could Elon Musk become Speaker of the House? Yes, but there was a there's a couple conditions to him being Speaker of the House. First of all, you do not have to be an elected member of the House to be Speaker. However, we have never had a non-member of the House become Speaker in 200 and almost 50 years. Never happened. So yes, he could be Speaker if they put him up for it. And I guarantee you, one of the dumb fucks is going to say, when it comes up to it, it wouldn't surprise me if it's somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene that they want Speaker or Musk to be Speaker. He'll get like 5 votes, maybe 10, and it ain't going to happen. But they're going to have to come up with some Republican who can get at some point 218 votes to become Speaker. And I was talking about it earlier. A couple of things that could happen. You could have 3 Republicans go to Hakeem Jeffries and say, "Hey, look, these guys are nuts. We need a competent leader in charge. We're voting for Hakeem." Hakeem Jeffries becomes Speaker. It's possible. Not probable, but it is possible. Or what you could have is Hakeem Jeffries could go to Mike Johnson, give him a list of demands, and say, "Hey, look, our caucus will back you to be Speaker. Here's what we want." Again, possible, not probable. But Musk being Speaker, possible, also very unlikely. I don't see 218 Republicans willing to vote for Musk. Beyond the fact that Musk is a dipshit, I just don't see House Republicans willing to cede the power of the speakership to somebody who's not in the House. Cody says politics are dirty. They will always be dirty, and they have been dirty. But it's interesting. Oh, yeah. Um, let's see. Katrina says Rand Paul did. Rand Paul did. Oh, he's not talking about being Musk Speaker. Yeah, but still, he's gonna get just a few. Um, a few votes for Speaker, but he won't. He'll never be Speaker. Nikki says AOC just said on her live that we are in a full-on oligarchy based on how passing the CR went. I disagree. I would have agreed if Musk and Trump would have got their way, but they didn't get their way. They got smacked back by reality. JS says Pelosi hasn't been behind anything. Trust co-presidents are making a mockery out of this nation. Well, they are. They're making a mockery on it. Let's see, did I block you already? Yes, I did. Uh, let's see. Nikki says she said Musk's real issues were about things in the bill about China and other things that impact him. Oh, wouldn't surprise me. Manti says Musk was not born in the USA. No, he was not. But you do not have to be an American. You do not have to be a natural-born U.S. citizen to be speaker. You have to be a natural-born U.S. citizen to be president. Now, if something were to happen to Trump, because he's going to be president in a month, let's just go with that. If something happens to Trump, Vance becomes president. Vance would get the ability to appoint his own VP. Congress would have to approve the new VP. Now, if something were to happen to Vance before the new VP could be approved by Congress, then there would be no president, no vice president. It would move down the line to speaker. If the stupidest of things could happen and Musk was speaker, he would not become president because he is ineligible. It would skip. Then it would go to the president pro tem of the Senate. If that person, whoever it is unwilling or ineligible, it moves past them. I believe then it is to Secretary of State. And down the line, it would keep going. So him not being a natural-born American citizen doesn't matter as far as whether or not he could be speaker. What matters is Congress is never going to approve it. The House would never do that. Musk is president. He owns Trump. Temporarily, they're going to butt heads. He's going to be gone. Frida says MTG has already called for Musk to be speaker. Yeah, and I was talking about in the actual roll call vote for being speaker when they tried to pick the actual speaker. Somebody's going to nominate him, and it wouldn't surprise me if the first one to do it would be MTG. But yeah, they're dumb. Love Boomer Podcast says, I heard Republican representative that was missing is in a hospital. Are they still a majority? I heard that too, and I was kind of looking into it. Now, none of the major news networks that I've seen have picked up on this. One small town paper, maybe not small town paper, I think it was Dallas something, one smaller paper, looked into it, and supposedly a member of the U.S. House of Representatives who will be out of office after this term. So she is done as of January 2nd anyway. Hasn't been showing up for votes, things like that. Supposedly she's living right now in a dementia unit. Now, I haven't found anybody to confirm that, but she also did not get reelected. A different Republican is taking her seat as of January 3rd. So, yes. And if that's all true, that's bad. This goes into something I say a lot on my lives, a lot on my podcast appearances. We've got too many old people on both sides of the aisle that need to retire. Democrats and Republicans. They are too old to be in positions of power. It's a fact. You have my favorite punching bag when it comes to being too old and being in a position of power is our senator here from Iowa, one of them, Chuck Grassley. He is 91 years old. He was born in 1933. The first printing of the chocolate chip cookie recipe came out in 1938. He is older than the goddamn chocolate chip cookie. He is 91 years old. He has been a senator longer than I have been alive. He has already filed the paperwork to run again in 2028. He will be 95 years old, which would make him 101 if he lives out that term. That is ridiculous. We need these older people, they need to retire. Now we find out supposedly there is a member of the House who is done as of this term. At least one news outlet, a smaller news outlet, is saying that she was in a dementia unit, supposed to be sitting in Congress. Why do we have people that we are worried about having dementia writing bills and laws? They're not going to be around long enough to have those bills and laws affect them realistically. Look at Dianne Feinstein, great senator from California. You're telling me we couldn't have found somebody younger to run for California, but they tried to keep her seat for as long as possible because they had such a thin majority in the Senate. She got to a point, she was 90 or 91 years old, where she died while being a member of the Senate, trying to make it to the end of her term. But before she died, her daughter had to go to court to get power of attorney to manage her mother's finances, because her mother couldn't manage her own money, yet she could be in Congress voting on bills and legislation. That makes zero sense. Katrina says, do you think Hakeem Jeffries has a chance to become speaker at some point? Yes. Yeah, Hakeem Jeffries will be speaker at some point. It's just a matter of when. Because at some point, Democrats are going to regain control of the House. More than likely, they will regain control of the House in 26. And Hakeem Jeffries will be speaker then. But, as I've been talking about in this live, you never know what could happen. Republicans might not be able to agree enough that 3 Republicans say, I'm voting for Jeffries, he becomes speaker now. There's also the simple matter of there are 3 seats that are currently going to be vacant in this upcoming term. That is Matt Gaetz' seat, Elise Stefanik, and there is one more whose name I can't think of. Matt Gaetz resigned because of the ethics issue. And then you have Elise Stefanik and the other guy that have been nominated to be in Trump's cabinet. And with those 3 special elections, we never know how special elections go, even in safe districts, because they're weird. They're on different time frames. It could be the second Tuesday in February that they're holding a special election or whatever. You never know how they go. Plus, you lose the incumbency factor. A lot of times people will go into the voting booth, they vote for the name they recognize. Well, that can change. You could get a well-known Democrat to run with some name recognition. If those 3 seats, if by some miracle all 3 flip in those special elections, that would make it 218 Democrats, the bare minimum to have a majority, and we would get Speaker Hakeem Jeffries yet this Congress. It is possible. We got to vote the creepy couch fucker out next election. Yeah, J.D. Vance is probably going to run in 28. Except he's got a lot of issues against him. Now, if the economy tanks as bad as Trump possibly could make it tank, he's going to have to own the Trump economy the way Kamala Harris owned the Biden economy. So that's going to work against him. If he uses the 25th Amendment and kicks out Trump, he loses the MAGA movement forever. If Donald Trump gets out with the 25th Amendment with an impeachment, depending on how Vance handles that, he could also lose MAGA forever. The only way he may have a chance if he becomes president ahead of 2029 would be if Donald Trump dies. And even then, depending on all of that, it still doesn't, he's going to have a lot of bad things. There's no chance for him to really capture MAGA. Now, that doesn't mean Democrats should sit on their heels. We got to be organizing going into 28 with a good message, a strong candidate, things like that. Because otherwise, we're going to have a repeat of this and we're going to say, well, J.D. Vance can't win no matter what. And then he's going to somehow fall ass backwards into the presidency like Trump fell ass backwards into the vice presidency. Miss Singleton says, what was the point of President Biden's reasons for signing all those Senate questions? I don't know what you're talking about. Let's see. Tony says anyone past retirement age should not be in office. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about. We have way too many old people here in office, up and down both parties. It is not a single party issue. They both refuse to let people go. We need to get younger blood in. Look what they did to AOC in that committee assignment position. She wanted to be on it. Nancy Pelosi put her thumb on the scale, and they went with 70-something-year-old representative whose name I can't think of, who's battling throat cancer. Nothing against the guy himself. He's fine. But instead of going with younger, they went with older again, and that's the problem. Let's see. Ella says we desperately need term limits. If TJ was here, he'd say age limits, not term limits, because experience matters. And he's right. You could maybe do a mix of both. Yeah. Well, you're going. Let's see. Love Boomer Podcast says who votes for these people? Yeah. Trump loves the poorly educated. And a lot of cases, they use name recognition to get in time after time after time. I was talking about Chuck Grassley. He's been in office longer than I've been alive. I remember being in like 5th or 6th grade and had to write some kind of a form letter to our senator and writing to Chuck Grassley. So when you get old enough to vote, that name's still there. Oh, I know that name. I kind of know him. And then you get into a habit of constantly voting for him. And if you're not paying close enough attention, you vote for the name you recognize. One of the plans I heard floated around here in Iowa was that at some point, Chuck Grassley, our senator, is going to resign. Supposedly, according to this one article I read. And that whoever they talked to said the plan was in the Iowa Republican Party was to have our Governor Kim Reynolds appoint Chuck Grassley's grandson. Is it Pete? I want to say it's Pete Grassley, but I could be wrong. Anyway, his grandson in to be the senator. So that way, when you go go vote when the term is up, you see the name Grassley, and you're continuing to vote for the name you recognize, which is Grassley, but now you're voting for the grandson. Tony says, talking about term limits, yes, and the Supreme Court needs to be expanded or abolished. Yeah. That's the thing. Supreme Court does need expanded. Supreme Court does need expanded. It doesn't need abolished. There should be more justices on it. They should have one per circuit. Term limits possibly. It needs to be easier to get rid of justices. Um, and the problem, either maybe not even term limits, maybe age limits, just like everything else, because then you eliminate some of the issues with health conditions, things like that, where you have people holding on until they get the right president in office to vote, their party in to vote on their or to nominate their replacement. So there's that. One thing I floated was a two-sided idea. I think there needs to be a time limit on nominations. If I could pass any amendment I want, well, I'd pass a lot of them, but one that I had thought of was this idea that after, say, July 1st, in a presidential election year, the president gets zero nominations to the Supreme Court after that. Period. Done. Too close to the election. Just set a date. But then also say, like, that from the date the president makes a nomination to Congress, to the Senate specifically, that they have like 6 months to hold a vote. And if there is no vote to confirm or deny the nominee, that they should be automatically approved. I think inaction should also be confirmation. That way you don't end up with a situation like what you had in 2016 where Mitch McConnell said February was too close to the election and held up Merrick Garland for an entire year, held that position open for almost a full year, and then in 2020 pushed Amy Coney Barrett through in 9 weeks, or 9 weeks, like 9 days, something like that. It was really fast. And I think both should be in there. That way it's cut and dry. Tirza says, do you think the TikTok ban is Trump's fault? No. I actually don't. I don't think that is Trump's fault. It was a combination of a couple things. One, it was the Democrats. I think the Democrats agreed to the TikTok ban, and I could be entirely wrong on this. I've been wrong before. But Republicans tried to tie the TikTok ban to a big foreign aid package. Democrats said, okay, we'll play your game. So they said, yeah, we'll play your game. We'll agree to the TikTok ban. We'll pass it. Because they planned on winning in November, having the House and Congress, and passing something to get rid of the ban. They're like, okay, we'll play your game and we'll leave the ban in temporarily, but we're gonna win everything and we'll make it go away. And then they failed. I think that was part of it. And the Republicans, they were initially pushing for it because they thought it was going to hurt their chances to get reelected. So they thought if they could get rid of TikTok, people like myself wouldn't be able to do this, where we're calling them out for their bullshit, and that it would help their chances to get elected. Now that they got elected, especially with the younger vote, now Donald Trump wants to keep TikTok. I think ultimately Supreme Court's going to save it, and I think First Amendment's going to win out and it's going to get saved. I just don't think it's going anywhere. Katrina says, suppose Donald Trump refuses to leave. Here's the thing. If they 25th Amendment him, if they impeach and remove him, or come 2028, when he is ineligible to run and they vote in a new president, it doesn't matter. All of those three things could happen. Whatever point in time, if they impeach and remove him or they use the 25th, or come 2029 when the new president would be inaugurated on January 20th, whenever those time frames are, they will either say J.D. Vance will be president as of right now, as of their ruling in Congress or whatever, or as of 12 noon, January 20th, 2029. When the new president, whether that's Vance or whoever gets elected in 28, takes the oath of office, the that person becomes president. Period. And then Donald Trump has no more power. He can say, "I'm not leaving the White House," and then he becomes a squatter. And Secret Service knows how to get rid of people. He would be forcibly removed, unless it was say J.D. Vance. Excuse me. And he allows Trump to stay based on that, and just says, "Okay, you can have your room, you can keep your room, that's fine, but you're not president anymore," and he would have no authority. Society Mom says Nancy is 84. Yeah, that's what I mean. She's 84 years old. Um, we have way too many old people in this. In Congress. Bluebird says Jerry Conley. That's the guy I was thinking of for the committee assignment. Blair says, how old is retirement age? It's not the age, it's mental capabilities. Bernie Sanders. I agree with you. Retirement age is like 67, I think, right now. Um, and um, yeah, it's like 67 is retirement age. So, and we got a lot of old members of Congress. And it's because they don't want to give up the levers of power. In part because people my age and the Gen Xers who are in their 50s now, when it was their turn, when they were young enough to start running or got old enough to start running, 20, 30 years ago, they didn't. They really didn't try. Not enough of them. And then you had the parties themselves. They don't set up any rules to keep the older people out. They could, but they don't. They just say if Nancy comes out and says she's running in 26, Nancy Pelosi's running in 26. You're telling me you couldn't find a younger Democrat in San Francisco to run as a Democrat? I guarantee you could. You could find somebody else to run in San Francisco. It's a safe district. But they don't do that. It's not like you were running Joe Manchin in West Virginia, where like it was the only person who could win. But these old people, they need to go. Katrina says, can we push the MAGAs off the side of a mountain? It'd make things better. Kate says Pat. Oh, Pat Grassley. Okay. Yeah, that's who I was thinking. Patrick Grassley. We are closer to Trump being inaugurated than the election. We are now, yeah. Society Mom says, what do you think about Kennedy and his drug addiction in college? Do you think he will be confirmed? No. I don't think he gets through the confirmation process. There's just no way. I don't think... I just don't think he gets confirmed. He's got so much against him, and as I say a lot of times in my lives, these politicians know they have to get re-elected. Alice says, will age limits bring on the battle cry of age discrimination? Possibly. Could. The thing is, in order to set an age limit, they would have to pass it through both chambers of Congress, and then 38 states would have to agree to it. It's a very hard process to get through. And at that point, with that many steps in the way, they that might be the one thing they complain about to get it to not pass. I don't know. But there really should be something there because we don't need these people. We don't need these people holding on to the levers of power this long. You know, uh, like Chuck Grassley being 91, that means he turned 18 in the 50s. The world is greatly different for people turning 18 in the 2020s than it was for people turning 18 in the 50s. And he's no longer, I don't think, in the best position to understand the day-to-day struggles of people. The election review to confirm if there was any fraud in the November election is due back anytime. Yeah, I've been hearing about that. Something with an executive order Trump signed, that there's some kind of a review due back. But even if that comes back, the question becomes, does anybody do anything? And I'm waiting to see, even if there was one, and what ends up happening because of it. Let's see. Love Boomer Podcast says Sonia Sotomayor selfishly refused to resign. Her seat may go to Trump if something happens to her. Yeah. And that's the thing. She is sitting out or staying in, hoping that she makes it 4 more years and the next Democratic president can appoint her replacement. She should have resigned 6 months ago and done it well before the election, that Joe Biden pick a replacement and dealt with her health issues and been done. But instead, she's holding on to her seat on the bench, and it's not a knock on her as far as like her legacy as being a justice. She's done a great job, but she needs to let it go. She's fighting some health issues. So that's why I think age limits could be a thing, or should be a thing, because the older you get, the more likely to have health issues too, or that you could pass. It would eliminate this game of waiting till the right president's in office just to have your preferred person, appoint your replacement. Kim says, well, yes, Bernie is old. He is not complacent and not in it for power, so he's the exception. Yeah, I'm not going to say he's putting up a good fight. And he's not really one of the ones that I'm complaining about with the age. But my point is, he's also in his 80s. While he's fighting a good fight for people, and he wants, health care and education, he wants a lot of good things. He's got the same problem that a lot of these old people have, is that he's still voting on laws that will barely affect him for much longer, because he is that old. If you told me 4 years, I'm assuming you mean 4 years ago, Trump would win in 2024, I would laugh. I didn't think the Democrats would throw it. Yeah. Democrats failed. There should have been no reason Kamala Harris didn't win this in a landslide. Everything was pointing toward her winning in a landslide. I thought for sure she would win the popular vote by 14, 15 million votes easy, because Donald Trump was just such a fucked up candidate and such a bad candidate. He was running on some of the dumbest policies we've ever heard. He was speaking in phrases that didn't make any sense, talking about sharks and batteries and Hannibal Lecter and things like that. I thought there was no way that he could win. That there's just no way he could win. Period. I didn't think it was possible. And I was even talking about things with the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the abortion ban measure that was on the ballot in Florida. You had abortion ban measures in Missouri. They were trying to get one on the ballot in Arkansas. You had the issues with abortion in Texas. and just up and down the ballot in all these states, it still doesn't make any sense to me how Missouri could vote to protect the right to an abortion in their state by like 53%, and the state goes to Trump, which is the reason they needed to put that abortion ban on the ballot in the first place, because he appointed the three justices that overturned Roe. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Jason says, also, when Ross Perot ran, he made such an impact. They changed the rules to stifle third parties. He did, but he also didn't. Because he got a lot of the popular vote. But he did not win any states when it came to winning electoral college. I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain Perot did not win a single state in the electoral college. So, but them changing the rules, sure. Yeah, third party is very hard to get a third party um, uh, candidate to make any traction in the presidential race. But here's the problem with third parties: is they focus on the presidential race, okay? And while the presidential race is important, one of the problems with only focusing on the presidential race is that if Jill Stein of the Green Party, let's just say, happened to have won the presidency this year, who's in her party in Congress? How does she get laws through Congress for her to sign? Oh, there's no members of the Green Party in Congress, which means she'd have to go to one party or the other and try to get them on her side to pass laws that she wanted to sign. They are so focused on winning the presidency, they're not winning state house races, they're not winning governorships, they're not winning Senate seats, they're not winning representative seats. They are just an issue. Like, they want the presidency, but they're not getting anywhere with it. You know what I mean? They're not seeing the big picture, and then they always whine that they can't win. Well, what would happen even if you did win? You can't get anything accomplished because you don't have any support anywhere else. Now, sure, if you had a Jill Stein win the presidency, let's say she would have won this time, you would have had tons of people flocking to the Green Party, and come midterms, they might have won some Senate seats and some House seats. But at that point, you've crippled the first half of your presidency because you don't have the support in Congress. They're doing it backward. They really are. Society Mom says term limits could take care of age discrimination. Yeah. What you could do is you could do both. Have it be up to, so many years and an upper age limit. So let's say I think you have to be 25 to be a member of the House. I think you have to be 30 to be a senator. Okay? So let's say we put a cap at 66 on a senator. That would be, 6 terms? That's still a long time. That's still 36 years. But you have it say something like no more than 36 years or till you reach age 66. Covers both, then you're done. Jason says we could impose age limits and term limits at state level with ballot initiatives. Yeah, that's possible, I guess. You could pass something that in your state you can't run. You'd be ineligible to be on the ballot for federal office representing your state or something, I guess. That could be possible. Ms. Singleton said, so why did President Biden put all these people in the Senate? What purpose does it serve? I still don't know what you mean. Well, uh, Marcy says it was stolen. I thought you knew that. She did not fail. I wasn't necessarily talking about Kamala Harris failing. I was saying the Democrats failed. They should have turned out to vote. Now, some people say it was stolen. I would love to see any sort of actual proof other than gut feelings and it not making sense, etc. I know there's some speculation about Starlink and Donald Trump saying he didn't need any more votes. I think that was him saying he was playing from a point of strength. You know, he was trying to say that his movement was so strong that he didn't need any more votes because he was definitely going to win, that kind of stuff. No, I'm not joining you to co-host. Somehow Trump won popular vote, but he lost some seats in the House. Yeah. Jason says we need to eliminate the two-party system. We need more of a parliamentary style. Yeah. But again, they need to in order to get to that point, though, the third parties need to be focused on winning in the House, winning in the Senate, that kind of thing. In part, one of the reasons why the multi-party system works in places like England and Canada is because of how, their system is slightly different, right? But they would need to have seats in Congress to help them be president. And that's where they need to focus if we were going to have a third party. Now, getting a third party, especially with how the Speaker of the House is selected, if they had a third party that even had 50 seats, they would have to form a coalition, that third party potentially with one of the two other parties, to agree even on a speaker and make things happen. A third party, if they started making enough noise, could be huge. But they need to focus on winning House seats and Senate races before, they focus on the presidency. That's also how you get your name up onto the big stage and you make yourself a household name, is by making a difference in Congress. It is one of the ways. Mully says he also said they had a little secret. Again, I think that was Trump just talking out his ass. He didn't know. He doesn't know much about much when you actually look at what he starts talking about. He thinks he knows everything. He thinks he knows a lot, but he typically doesn't know shit about shit. Trevor says Biden appointed all those justices to outweigh what Trump did. Yeah. Well, it was judges, not justices, but I know what you mean. They appointed a record number of judges this term. Donald Trump is entering the presidency with the fewest number of open judicial appointments, period. And Joe Biden and Senate Democrats have pushed through a record number of judges. And those are lifetime appointments. Donald Trump can't fire them. They are protected. They could be potentially impeached and removed, but it still takes 2/3 of the Senate to remove them. And unless it's egregious, not going to happen. And a lot of those judges are going to be the ones that are going to be standing tall when these laws get passed and some of the executive orders and some of the dumb shit stuff happens. That's actually illegal, highly questionable. And these judges are going to say, hey, the law says this, you can't do that. And they're going to draw the line. And a lot of the stuff Donald Trump wants to do is going to be held up in court for his entire presidency. And by the time the courts finally rule on a lot of it, um, they he'll be out of office one way or another. Mully says they're trying to investigate the three judges that decided not to retire. Is there anything they can do? Um, no. The short answer is no. They're lifetime appointments. They serve in times of good behavior. Unless they're impeached and removed, there's nothing they can do. They may try to find an investigation. They may try to come up with something to impeach them, but they don't have 67 votes in the Senate, not 67 guaranteed votes that are all Republican. So they could try to impeach them. They could try to remove them. But ultimately, they're not going to do. They're not. I don't think they're going to be able to do anything. And these judges said, "We're staying because Donald Trump is such a bad risk for this country." They didn't want Donald Trump picking their replacements. Ms. Singleton said that's what I was referring to. Okay, you were talking about putting the judges through. Okay. Yeah. The point of pushing through all the judges is because they're lifetime appointments. So when you hear about a law being ruled unconstitutional by a federal judge, that would be one of the number that Joe Biden put through, one of the number Obama did, etc. And he's putting through a lot of liberal-leaning judges, and those are lifetime appointments. Donald Trump can't fire them, he can't touch them. And when cases come up before them, they're going to, rule on it based on the facts and the law. Now, does that mean every case is going to go in the way of liberals and Democrats, etc.? No. But it helps. Far more than putting on somebody who's woefully incompetent, like an Aileen Cannon. Somebody who proves that they're in it only for Donald Trump. Okay. Well, I'm glad I cleared that up for you. I wasn't sure what you meant by all those people. I was very confused. But now we got that cleared up. Yeah. And this budget that they just passed, that Joe Biden signed in the early morning hours this morning, it's a big loss for Donald Trump. It really is. He didn't get what he wanted. He really wanted the government to shut down so they could blame Biden. Because he even said that. He goes, well, if they're going to shut the government down, it should happen now under Biden and not in January under Trump. And then, he wanted to completely eliminate the debt ceiling. Now that's going to come up. That's going to be an issue they're going to have to deal with and tackle soon. Because we have an upper limit as to how much we can borrow as having old fossil man mad dictate what people who are in their 20s should do. Oh, are you talking about the our elected officials that are really old? Yeah, that's my point. The world's changed when we talk about the older people being in power. Even looking at what's changed, it was just starting to change when I turned 18. Let's see. It was starting to really change and become unaffordable at that point. But when you have people who, like Chuck Grassley, who turned 18 in the 50s, where you could buy a house for a couple $1,000, the world's vastly different. They're not making the same ratio income to housing costs, etc. that it was happening then. The world's way more integrated. Um, we have technology that was considered science fiction when some of these people were turning 18, and it's now reality. Hell, some of the technology we have now was considered science fiction when I was a kid. Things like tablets was considered, 24th century technology on Star Trek. You know, we need younger and youth in the government because they understand it better. They can adapt better to make choices about how things are changing. Very few members of Congress right now. I know there's the one, and I can't think of his name. There's the one representative in Congress who survived, I think it was Parkland, the school shooting. So he would understand. He's survived a school shooting, and he's lived through a generation where they have active shooter drills now. They have training for active shooter. I never had that. Not in high school, not in grade school. I did go back. I went back, got some. Was working on another degree a few years back, and I wasn't able to get out of it. I had to take their intro to college course, and part of it they had to cover active shooter training. It was interesting. I was in my 30s taking it for the first time. I had never dealt with active shooter training prior to that in any job, any class, anything. Surprised the hell out of me that it was actually, and it was a 2 class period training session about active shooters. So when I say these old people, they don't understand. I guarantee you most of the old fossils in Congress have never sat to sit through an active shooter training. Maybe they have something for for Congress or whatever now, but I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Ms. Singleton said someone said they wanted it shut down because they knew they are being investigated. Very well could be. Very well could be. I haven't heard anything definitive saying that's the case, but they could have wanted it shut down because that would kill any of the investigations. Let's see. Kalia says, do you think Trump was aware and agreed with Musk's tweet about the budget? I don't think he was aware at the time. I think he came out in favor of it after. And now I think he's pissed at Musk because it made him look dumb. Because he didn't get his way. They didn't get anything they wanted really in the budget deal. They didn't get the debt ceiling raised. They got the farm aid put through. They got the disaster aid put through. Even the one thing that they managed to cut out of the bill, the childhood cancer research money, that grant money, they just passed a resolution for it by itself, and that still got put through. Donald Trump really lost in this thing. And I'm going to do a video on this, probably either, I don't know if I'll do it yet tonight, probably for tomorrow. There was a raise for Congress in this bill, in this funding bill. It was like $6,600 a year or something like that. Not an awful lot of money. Now they make they're going to start making $180,000 a year. And I'm not overly pissed that they got a raise. Now some people are mad saying Congress shouldn't be able to vote themselves a raise. Things like that. And the 27th Amendment says they cannot vote themselves a raise. They have to vote it on the next Congress. So if on and I'm gonna wrap Ted's comment here into this. Ted asks when the last pay raise was for Congress. Their last pay raise was 2009. they haven't had a raise in 15 years. So them getting $6,000 in 15 years, okay. I'm not overly mad. Like it wasn't it wasn't $100,000 or more or anything like that. It was $6,000. Comes out to about $125 a week. It's not a lot. It's not a huge pay raise. So I'm not mad about them getting a raise. The 27th Amendment says they cannot vote themselves a raise. It goes into effect the next Congress. So if January 4th, if they pass a new pay raise for Congress, it cannot take effect until January 3rd of 2027, the beginning of the next Congress. So we got to rely on Trump to keep the government open for the next 4 years. No. Yes, but no. You got to rely on Democrats. Realistically, Democrats are going to go to whoever the speaker is, whether it's Mike Johnson or whoever, when it comes time to keep the government open, and they're going to say, "Look, here's XYZ. This is what we want, with no cuts to this, and this, and you got yourself a deal. We'll back it." And they throw 200 and some votes against the spending bill in the House. They have 48 or 47 seats in the Senate. Same thing. Chuck Schumer will go to John Thune and say, "Look, when that resolution comes from the House, because all spending starts in the House, we'll vote for it if it comes through with bipartisan support." Okay? They can only lose 3 votes for funding bills, for any bill in the House. And after there are vacancies, they can lose 1 vote until those special elections are held. And that's if Donald Trump doesn't pull any more people out of the House of Representatives. So Democrats are going to be playing with an upper hand here, and they're going to be driving it from behind the scenes. Now, if Donald Trump doesn't get his way, obviously when it comes to a funding bill, he won't sign it. He'll say, I'm going to veto it. This is where the Democrats, again, have the upper hand. So they passed the last bill. Not everybody was there. It passed like 370 something to 35 or something like that in the House. So it passed with overwhelming majority. It passed with 86 votes in the Senate. Again, overwhelming majority. That's a veto-proof majority, which means Democrats will be coming back around and saying, "Okay, we'll back it and we'll get you a veto-proof majority." But that'll be one of the conditions, whereas if Trump vetoes it, we pass it around his veto. And they'll keep the government open despite Trump. So it's really going to be up to the Democrats and how they play hardball. Frida says the really old congressman would have had duck and cover Cold War drills. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I've hit just about an hour and a half. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for joining me. We got through it, made it through without a moderator. So that was great. Thank you all for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. I'm going to be doing more of these. Just trying to keep the pace going, keep everybody having a positive outlook about everything. It's going to be bad, but it's not going to be that bad. Trevor says, I handled the moderator job fine by myself. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I think TJ would have been bored if he would have been here. He likes kicking out the MAGAs and the Trump supporters. Anybody who joined in, I do want to let you know, I do record all my lives. This will be up over on my YouTube page, Analytical Iowan on YouTube. It'll be up sometime in the early morning hours, however long it takes YouTube to finish the upload. I put all my TikToks over there. I've got some longer form videos over there as well. And I also encourage you to check out the Rational Boomer podcast and Miss Singleton asks, is it in my bio? The link to my YouTube is in my bio. I have a link tree. It is on there. But I also encourage you to check out The Rational Boomer. There is a link to his link tree also in my bio. And coming out in the next few days, he is going to be having a couple lives get posted where we did multi-guest lives where the Boomer, myself, TJ the Plumber, the moderator that we share, Rebecca, Will, just a bunch of us got in and we had a great conversation. That's coming out soon, not sure exactly when. So I recommend you to keep looking out for it. When I find out what day it's posted, I'll probably do a TikTok on it. But I encourage you to check that out as well. So, yeah, again, you can check out the entire live over on my YouTube page, Analytical Iowan, on YouTube. There is a link in my bio. And once again, just want to thank you all. Society Mom says, thank you. Excellent conversation and knowledgeable. Well, thank you. I'm glad somebody's getting something out of it. That's the main reason I do this. I hope to try to make people understand and just, calm some fears a little bit. And just share the things I see and the things the way I understand it. So, again, I want to thank you for joining me. And I will catch you the next time I go live. All right, had a great live, survived it without TJ, so that was interesting. So yeah, I want to thank you for joining me, and I will catch you the next time I do another one of these.